The Return of the Living Dead has a reputation of being one of the greatest horror movies of all time, and while it is definitely hilarious, make no mistake, this is a horror movie through and through, with so much bleak hopelessness lurking under all the laughs. I think that's one thing that makes it incredibly unique. Something like Shaun of the Dead is also considered a horror comedy, but that movie is at least 99% comedy. I don't know if I'd even put Shaun of the Dead on a horror shelf, although one could argue it belongs there. I like that movie, but it's mostly a full-fledged comedy with very little in the way of horror. The Return of the Living Dead, on the other hand, is a beautiful mixture of half comedy, half horror, often at the same time. This movie does not skimp on the horror. It does an amazing job balancing the laughs and the scares, and I can't think of another movie that does this so well, feeling so funny and yet so dark at the same time. Reanimator probably is the closest thing I can think of. Honestly, despite being funny, this movie really gets pretty dark. The sense of chaotic hopelessness stretches throughout the entire runtime, growing more and more with each passing second. The way each scene propels the chaos forward is a great example of the screenplay's quality. Despite the humor from the writers and actors, it is also horrifying in many ways. The constant tension and dread that starts at the beginning of the movie continues to grow with each passing minute. The chaos of the movie never lets up, and there are no moments to breathe, really. It just keeps getting crazier as the situation the characters find themselves in continues to worsen. The zombies are also horrifying. They haven't lost any of the intelligence they had when alive, which we see a clear example of when Talmon is using tools to try to get Tina out of the locker. They speak clearly and seem very lucid. A defining moment in the film is when the female zombie tells us how painful it is to be dead. At first, this moment might seem bizarre and comedic, but when you think about what she's saying, it is chilling, not to mention horrifying. She says she can feel herself rot. We also see examples of zombies' intelligence in multiple scenes where they use the paramedic and police radios to call for more living humans to be sent. Personally, I think that zombies in The Return of the Living Dead are scariest zombies ever put to film. The reason I think this is because they are essentially unstoppable. Shooting them in the head doesn't stop them. Cutting them up into 1,000 tiny pieces doesn't stop them. Burning them might stop them, but only if you make sure to burn every last bit of their flesh and bones. But then the smoke from the fire might mix with rain and cause more zombies to spring up from their graves. It's a nightmare. The chemical trioxin 245 is terrifying. This movie is unique when you think about the way people become infected. There seem to be some gray areas, but it seems like a mere zombie bite doesn't necessarily cause you to become a raging zombie. You need to be exposed to the chemical itself to reanimate into a running, unstoppable corpse. It even reanimates long dead animal specimens, even butterflies. An example of this is the leader of the punk gang who is bitten by Talmon. He doesn't turn into a zombie, but Trash does, presumably because she becomes infected while being eaten alive in a large puddle of acid rain, which is contaminated with trioxin 245. It's an interesting thing to think about. Can zombie bites in this movie turn you into a zombie? Or do you need to be exposed to the trioxin? I want to talk about the characters in this movie. You've got two distinct groups. The first group are the punks. They are wandering around, planning on meeting their friend Freddy, who just got a new job at at a medical supply warehouse which is right next to an old cemetery. The second group of characters are three middle-aged professionals: Frank, who works for Bart at the medical supply warehouse, and Arnie, who is a mortician at the cemetery. The young punks have a lot of time to kill before Freddy gets off, so they decide to go mess around in the graveyard, partying and listening to music and dancing. These characters are so funny, especially Trash. She's my favorite. I think Rainier Quigley did such a great job playing her. Tina seems like the least punkish of the group, and the scene where she wanders away from the graveyard to go looking for Freddy at his job becomes pure nightmare fuel once she finds something in the basement. Or someone. Tom Matthews from Friday the 13th Part 6 plays Freddy, and he is hilarious in his role as the new kid working for Frank and Bart. His comedic timing is impeccable, and he plays off Frank so well. Frank is played by James Karen, who is probably my favorite character in this movie. He does so well with the slapstick comedy and physical acting, as well as the screaming he has to do. I bet he and Tom had sore throats during the filming of this movie. They screamed a lot. Crew Gallagher is Bert, the owner and operator of medical supply. He is also brilliant in the role, showing off serious acting chops as he panics his way through the film, worrying more than anything about his company. The zombies aren't his main concern. Sure, he's panicked about that, but getting into trouble for having those canisters in his basement what makes him sweat, and he's reluctant to even tell the paramedics what chemical Frank and Freddy ingested, even if their lives depend on it. Crew was a great actor, and he plays this part perfectly. Despite being selfish and panicked about his business, he also proves himself to be a good, brave fighter. I like the scene when he and Spider take a big risk of leaving the mortuary to try and escape in the police car. Don Carver plays Arnie wonderfully. I like how he becomes increasingly paranoid throughout the film. It's great physical acting. Near the end, his eyelid is twitching, and you can clearly see how stressed he is. He's on the verge of cracking. One of my favorite scenes comes early on when Frank, Freddy, and Bart plan to stop the yellow screaming zombie. The film is so well shot and edited during this sequence, with the close-up of the actors' sweating faces, as well as Freddy's nervous fingers spinning in the combination lock to the door. Then the yellow zombie bursts out, and for a moment, we think that Bart is a goner. But luckily he isn't. I'm glad that character got to stick around to see the end. The actors had around 2 full weeks to rehearse before shooting the film, according to James Karen, and that helped them a lot. I really like the setting of this film. Nearly all of it takes place within a couple blocks. You've got the medical supply warehouse, the cemetery, and the mortuary, which is located in the cemetery. It makes you feel a bit claustrophobic as you watch the chaos ensue. You put yourself in the character's shoes and wonder how you'd escape. If only they could just get into the car and drive away, then they might be able to escape this madness. But Bart and Spider try to do that, and quickly find themselves blocked by a massive barricade of zombies running in their direction, blocking the entire road. You feel just as trapped as they do, or at least I did. I watched these characters try to navigate their ways through this insanity. I wondered what I would do differently. I guess nothing, really. They tried their best. I have to mention the zombies in this, of course. I already talked about the yellow corpse, but Tarman deserves to be talked about. His design is incredible and iconic, and I think he's probably my favorite zombie from any movie. Alan Trotman did an amazing job with the movements. The way he moved his hips and flung his arms around as he walked was creepy, so inhuman, so gross. The other standout zombie is the old woman with blood-soaked hair. The lower half of her body is missing, and she wiggles her spine around like a cat wiggling its tail. In the Japanese subtitle, Annie asks her what her name is. She replies, Obamba. It's very funny and strange. I'm not sure why they added those subtitles, because in the film, Annie doesn't even ask her what her name is. In Japan, that has caused a lot of discussion over the years. The title of the movie in Japanese is Battalion, which is also funny. I love the way this film is shot and directed. I really think it's beautiful. People often talk about The Return of the Living Dead like it's simply a cheesy horror movie, but I don't think any of that cheese is unintentional. This film has so much heart, so much energy. I think the film is a perfect balance of laughs and horror. It's 91 minutes of absolute chaos without a second wasted. This film, in my opinion, has a perfect screenplay. I'm not kidding when I say I think it could be taught in film schools as an example of how to structure a story. There is not an ounce of plot to this movie, and it doesn't waste any time whatsoever. It is lean, mean, terrifying, and hilarious. Another massive strength to the film is the acting itself. As I mentioned, Tom Matthews plays off James Karen wonderfully. Their scenes together are both hilarious and tragic. Crew Gallagher as Bud is a delight to watch, as is Don Calfer as Annie. The casting department did a great job of casting the three middle-aged men. I can't imagine who else could have played those parts so well. I want to bring up the score as well. The theme is so memorable and creepy. I'm glad they gave it a loud, bombastic score rather than something subtle, because it works so well over the opening credits. That reminds me, one of my favorite scenes in this film is the beginning when Frank slaps the barrel and gas quickly leaks out, leading to the opening credits and nightmarish events of the film. I hope that Dan O'Bannon was proud of this film, because it's a masterpiece. I know that film is well regarded, but I think it should be talked about even more than it is. I really think it's a prime example of a perfect movie, and there is nothing that I would change about it. Sadly, the sequel isn't very good. It's fun on its own, as more of a light-hearted kids horror movie, and it's great to see Tom Matthews and James Karen again. And seeing pre-Twin Peaks Bobby Briggs was cool, but the film doesn't match up to the original at all. It isn't a terrible movie by any means, but it is a disappointment compared to the brilliance of the original. I wondered what a sequel directed by Dan O'Bannon would have looked like. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe nothing could have been nearly as good as the first. Return of the Living Dead feels almost like lightning in a bottle. This film, to me, is a truly perfect movie. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed listening to my review of this 1985 classic, and make sure to subscribe if you like to see more videos from me on horror movies.